I'm happy to invite Robert Abaane to talk to us about the Gcap.
A few years ago, as you have been told, I worked for an organization in this country. And in that organization, we had senior management. Now, what that team did was to meet quarterly, to look at the operational strategic issues affecting, of course, the organization. Now, what happened was that during those meetings, the country director will usually do more than 70% of the talking, and then the rest will be done by the rest of the senior management team. Now, but out of, I don't know whether to call it extreme respect or fear for the country director, anybody who got up to make a contribution will usually say that, quote and unquote, just to add to what Madam has said. And as you have all witnessed just before me, you have seen that the three madams have spoken very eloquently about the topic that we are looking at today. But as my colleagues used to say, in the organization that I work for, I'm not going to name it because you all know it. I'm just adding to what the three madams have said. Ours is a 5-year project and is funded by the World Bank and USAID. Total project cost is $145 million US. 100 million is a loan from the IDA. Thank USAID for that loan. They've given us 45 million as a grant. The goal of the project is to ensure increased access to secure land, private sector finance, and input and output markets by smallholder farmers through the support that we give to the private sector project. So when we give you money, we expect that you will help the smallholders to get land, to provide some funding apart from our funding, and you ensure that you mop up their produce and provide them some input. That is what our project aims at doing. You know, one of the challenges with Agri is the fact that there's not that much intersectorial coordination. What we have done in terms of implementation is to work with all the MDAs that have a relationship with Agri. We are talking of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, IDA, the Lands Commission, the Environmental Protection Agency, and all the units within the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. So we have what we call a technical committee that we work with. Our project has basically 4 components. One is strengthening investment promotion and facilitating secure access to land. The other one is providing funding to private sector operators and helping them to link up with smallholders in their craft lanes. The third component is providing support to private sector operators and linking them up to private smallholders in the SADA zone. And of course, we are managing the project. We are doing M&E as well. One of the weaknesses with the project when it was designed was that issues of water was not looked at all. So in mid last year, there was an implementation support mission, and one of the things they said was that, look, you cannot talk of promoting commercial agriculture without talking of water retention, particularly in northern Ghana. So the project is currently being reviewed, being restructured, and we are trying to provide funding for the rehabilitation of some of the major irrigation schemes that we have in Ghana. So we're working on the KIA. We are trying to work on Zulu here. So the project is being restructured. Now, what is it about it? Gender is a very important dimension of our project. In particular, when we give you funding, we try to get you to involve women direct, either as outgoers or as regional or whatever. And we also try to ensure that women's voices are adequately represented in whatever support that we offer the grant partners. And of course, we try to get our grant partners not to undertake activities that would negatively affect the livelihoods and of women particularly, but of course the entire society. what has been the contribution of women to agricultural development in Ghana? The statistics we have say that women contribute 52% of the labor force in agri. That's quite significant. They also contribute between 55 to 60% of the total output, particularly food crops. Women form 70% of food crop growers. Of course, they are 95% of agro-processors and 85% of those who are engaged in food distribution. So you see that the contribution of women is quite significant. Now, having looked at all these significant contributions, there are a number of challenges, and they have already been spoken about, so I'll just run through them quickly. One is, of course, having access to land, particularly the very productive one, the big challenge, whether in the north or in the south. Of course, the literacy levels, particularly for women, is quite low, and you know the impact that has, not just on agriculture, but in every sphere of life. Of course, the access to technology and input is quite limited because, in any case, they don't have access to extension, they don't have the money to buy some of the inputs and buy some of the machines that will improve their technological distance. Of course, they don't have the money, as I've said already. And I think I mentioned this earlier, extension that will help them improve their knowledge production is quite limited. The few extension officers will go to men. Somebody spoke very well about that today. So these are the challenges. Now, how are we as a project addressing some of these challenges? I've said, you bring your proposal, we would scrutinize that proposal and ensure that at least you are having a certain minimum percentage of women who are your outgrowers. If you don't have a certain very basic minimum, it's as good as not writing a proposal to them because it will not be granted. We also require that in employing, you will employ a certain minimum of women as laborers. And then, of course, particularly for those who are into rice production, we try to encourage our partners to let the women play some of the role along the value chain, particularly in agro process. Then, of course, the issue of extension, we try to ensure that our grant partners reach out to the women in terms of providing them extension and be up to speed with the kind of technology and knowledge that they need to produce. We also do a lot of community engagement. Currently, we are having a firm male consult, I'm sure you all know, Abaane, and she's doing some level of engagement with the community to meet up with women so that everybody in the community knows the kind of opportunities that we have, how to access our funding. We do that quite a lot. We have instituted a grievance redress mechanism, and I'm happy to report that women are adequately represented. We have chiefs, we have the youth, and a whole wide range of people who are represented on that committee, but particularly women play a very important role in our grievance redress mechanism. 41%, I think the weird lady reported it earlier. 41% of our outgrowers are women, and I think that's quite a big achievement. If you think of the fact that women generally don't have access to land, through this our project, 41% of them are women. I think that's quite encouraging. Out of the 31 grant partners that we are currently supporting, 2 of the companies are owned by ladies, one in Tamale and one somewhere around area there. Of course, we acknowledge the fact that 2 out of 31 is not good enough. So what we have done is, for our second call, we went on regional fora, and we went with somebody from WIAD to try and encourage women to apply and be considered. But you see, there are requirements, and so sometimes it's a bit difficult to lower it to an extent that every woman can access. But we are trying to see how we can support women to be not just outgrowers and laborers, but also they should actually access the funding themselves. As I said, women are adequately represented in our grievance redress mechanism. Now, these are a few statistics from our SADA area. 33% of all the land holdings for maize production is held by women. 33% of all the land for our outgrowers for maize production in the SADA zone is held by women. And if you consider the fact that they traditionally don't have access to land, 33 is quite significant. Then 38% of all the land for rice production that we are supporting is held by women. It's quite good. Last but not least, 43% of all the land holdings for soybean production in the SADA zone held by outgrowers is in the hands of women. So we think that all these things are quite significant, and we are still trying to get women to be maybe 50%, but that's a very difficult task. I'd like to invite all of you to support us in the endeavor to get women with our male counterparts. Thank you very much.
The final presentation in this session is going to be made by someone quite special. We've given the Buklong people an opportunity to speak their big English. We're now inviting Hajia Ibrahim Temako, who is a leader of a cooperative of about 70 women in the shea butter preparation trade in Tamale. I think I will not belabor the point. We'll talk about Temoko and what she's been able to do with regards to women's empowerment in the northern region at a later time. Hajia.
Good afternoon. I am Hajara Ibrahim Temako from the Temoko farmers. I am a leader of 70 women. I started working with the women 5 years ago. It was a dead association that were picked by some organization called CCFC. They were able to build a center for them, but somewhere along the line, because they were working with their husbands in a local community, the husbands wanted to take away whatever the women were making out of the shea butter. So the center became a dead one. And through my work with the Northern Rural Growth, I have been a farmer, a processor, and a marketer from childhood, because I inherited this from my mom. So somewhere along the line, the Northern Rural Growth have trained me. They've shown me what an entrepreneur is supposed to be. They've taken me out. I've been exposed to a lot of experience. So I came and saw this group dying off, and there was an opportunity for Northern Rural Growth to introduce me to an organization called SFC. They are also in Tamale. So I saw that SFC is a marketing company that can buy shea butter from these women. And there are other rural women that pick shea nuts, and they don't get good market for it. And then SFC is an organization that helps the women. They don't only buy the nuts from the women, but at the end of every season, they are able to give the women some bonuses. Even though their price is somehow better than the market price. Our own sisters buy the butter from the women at a lesser cost. But SFC comes in, it doesn't only buy the butter, but SFC gives the women the money to buy the nuts. If the nuts is sold at 2 cedis, SFC will give you 2 cedis 50 pesos. So that you buy the nuts, process the butter, and then you give them a kilo of butter at 2 cedis 50 pesos. Whereby a bowl of the nuts that you bought at 2 cedis, if you are somebody who knows how to process butter very well, you are able to make 2 kilos or 1.5 kilo or 1 3/4 kilo in that bowl. And then SFC will pay 2 cedis 50 pesos for a kilo of the butter. Meanwhile, the nuts is being sold on the market at 2 cities. So through the Northern Rural Growth, I was introduced to SFC, and then I also took this group up, trained them, taught them what to do, how to process the butter at a very nice quality butter for SFC to buy. And then I introduced them to SFC. And since then, I think these 70 women are able to take good care of their household, their husbands and children. Their children are attending school well. They pay their school fees. And the women are also doing well because they don't go for this bank loans and this susu credit that they go in for. They don't go in for this credit. SFC is able to give them money to buy the nuts, process, and then in turn pay them in kind with the butter they process. Besides that, Northern Rural Growth has been able to help us acquire some machines. We pay 10%, Northern Rural Growth pay 40%, and then they access 50% from the bank for us to acquire this machine. We have our motor kiosks now that we ride on our own. We're able to go to the rural areas to bring our nuts back to the center where we process our butter. We're able to buy our grinding mills, and the women are doing very well in this business. So I think this is just what I have to say about the group I'm working with. If anybody has any question to ask me, I think I'll welcome you.